2021 was a massive year for BNB, which saw gains over 1,200%. So what could this upcoming year look like for 2022? How we doing, coin traders? Thanks for joining me for the show. We are going to be looking at Binance coin BNB on that ticker. Definitely a great year since 2021. Saw a huge upside move. And so whether or not we actually see that repeat in 2022, we're going to talk about that today and what our predictions and thoughts are for this upcoming year for Binance coin. So we do got a lot to cover in the show today, talking all about BNB. And if that sounds good and you're ready to dive all into the wonderful world of Binance coin BNB, you know what to do. Smash that free like button. Let's go. Now, before we dive all into the charts, I did want to start with looking at market cap rankings. Ranking right now for market cap just under 81 billion at 80.795 billion, which does have that put BNB at the number 3 spot on top of Tether, Solana, and USDC coin. I never really like comparing the stable coins right now in this overall ranking chart. So just looking at Solana and Cardano, both have market caps in the 40 billion. So we are completely well above that. So we would basically have to see Solana and Cardano make a 2x move or just under that in order to actually catch that market cap. However, looking overhead at Ethereum, 390 billion, so a ton of upside before we were looking at catching Ethereum. So based on that, that does have us situated pretty nicely right now in the number 3 spot. So I do anticipate that to hold out for a while anyway. Can't really see a lot of other factors. We would have to have Solana or one of the other coins just make an insane run and basically have BNB be stagnant or pull back a little, which I don't really see as the plan. So I do think that at a minimum for the majority of the year, we will be seeing a BNB likely situated at number 3 based on market cap. Now, one thing that could impact this is if they do keep doing the token burn, then we would have to see the price pump up a lot more in order to offset that, which price probably would go up if they do start reducing the supply even more. Now, with all of that said, let's jump into the chart. This is the 2-day chart that we are looking at first. I want to flip over to the log scale here and actually look at a very nice trend line that has been formed that the price has pretty much been riding this whole way. So we are going to maintain that this is a valid trend line since we have support. Very nice support over the summer lows, which also saw higher lows throughout that whole process, effectively putting it in this nice consolidation pattern that broke bullish. So then pulled back, retested it, claimed it as support once again, and then now retested it and also held it up as support. So like I always talk about, when an indicator or trend line is working, then that's what we're going to keep and continuing to use. So this is going to be a level of support that we're going to look to as we do push prices to the upside. Now, several things to look at up on top. We do have a very nice level of resistance that comes in right around the all-time highs. So we do have 2 effectively based on closing resistance and then also price level resistance. So the very upside right now is going to be looking at the all-time high, which comes in at 704.60. And then below that would be the level of closing resistance right now we do have at 657.80. So now assuming we can maintain this trend line of support to the upside, extending this outward would then, just based on this, push the price above the all-time high and in a new blue sky breakout around the July to August timeframe. But that's assuming that the price just continues to run along this trend line, which I don't really anticipate it to do. So I do think, just like all these other times we do get these bounces along this trend line, I do think it's likely that we'll get another bounce, run up, and actually test this big double top resistance so far, since we are forming this ascending triangle. This is a bullish pattern, so we do ultimately expect this resistance point to get smashed, especially after multiple tests, as long as we do maintain this uptrend for support. So now let's flip back into the linear scale here and actually talk about what this trend line or what this price could look like if we do see a huge run up and rally that smashes the all-time highs and also the level of closing resistance right now. So we are going to do a Fibonacci extension. Now I'm going to start from the level that we saw basically back at the start of last year down to the summer lows that we did see back in May. So based on that being our high and then our swing low, we do look like looking up at the 1.618, and this is also an extremely nice bullish market. So for that, we would be looking at a price of $12.94. And so if we do see a continuation of a lot of the burn for BNB, as well as a lot more growth in utility, then that could help fuel that demand, especially if we do see a continued bullish break and the big crypto market continuing to remain bullish throughout 2022. That would definitely be one of our good upside targets, pretty much right around the $1,300 level. And so next, I'm actually going to do an extension from the May low to the recent trend high that was back in September to the swing low that we saw. And so that $1,300 level would put us right above the 2.618 extension based on that chart, which still should be a very reasonable target. Now, one of the things that we like doing is that if we actually assume this pattern at the bottom is a very nice bull coming off of a double top, pulling back and effectively making a cup and handle type pattern, we could ultimately see a test and a big break. And what that would do is actually put the depth of the bull as our upside target. So if we look at breaking the all-time highs right now, based on a point where we saw that actually would line up with the 2.618 extension, which based on this is just shy of the $1,200 level at 1186. So based off of those two targets, 1,200 to 1,300 would be our big upside target for all of next year. And it doesn't really sound like that insane of a year compared to what we saw. So even into next year would be about 164% gain. I always like doing a little bit more conservative target. So if we do get a little bit more continuation, then over the next year, I think that would actually be a pretty nice and good target. Still would not complain about over 160% gains. So we'll see whether or not that actually plays out and how the ultimate smashing of this double top resistance is, which does come in right above the $700 level. Now, if we flip into the weekly chart right now, I want to talk about how we are forming a very nice support on top of the 50-period EMA. So even pulling back over the summer lows, kicked off and found it as support. And even now in the current, we are still finding it as price level support. So you can see the price did kick off right at this 50-period EMA. And so in combination with this trend line that we have, and we can actually draw it really nicely on this weekly as well, having very nice support between this trend line as well as this 50-period EMA on this weekly, and also rising levels of higher lows on each pullback, does mean that this crypto chart is a lot stronger overall. And also combine that with the fact that we are getting a lot more development and build out on top of Binance Smart Chain. And that's all in combination too with a lot more users, which are also on Binance using Binance Coin. We could very well continue to see the price continue its upside. And then assuming we don't get an outright dump across the whole bear market, then likely that would pretty much be a very good indication that I would expect a smash of the double top all-time highs and then heading up towards those upside targets like we just mentioned. Now flipping back to the 2-day chart because I want to talk about this RSI relative strength index before we actually wrap up. So the last time we saw the 2-day oversold was March of 2020 when we had the big COVID crash. And so right now we are seeing the biggest pullback leading to the lowest RSI that we have seen since that March 2020 crash. So right now, RSI is coming in at 32.62 for this 2-day. And the lowest we had previously was back in May where we saw 33.49. And then even from this low, we still saw a lot of upside. So we are hoping that because this is such a good indication of a lot of upside that we have seen the last 2 times it did get to this level, we're hoping this could also be enough of an indication as well that we could be seeing a lot more upside pressure to test this double top resistance point and be on the way to those upside targets. So personally, I think right now the only thing that would prevent BNB from reaching those targets is that if the crypto space here in the coming days and weeks just decides to continue a bear market, then I think we could be looking at a little bit more downside pressure throughout the year and probably a less likelihood of actually hitting those 2022 targets. But otherwise, I do think that everything's still set up pretty good. And personally, my hunch and prediction and speculation is that we're still going to continue to see more bullish upside pressure for this chart and for the rest of the crypto space here in 2022. With that, though, that actually is going to go ahead and wrap up the show today on BNB and all of our predictions for 2022. Would love to know everyone's thoughts and predictions down in the comments section as well as any comments, disagreements, all that stuff and more. If you haven't done so just yet, please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. Definitely helps me out. Thanks again for all the continued love and support. As always, means so much. Stay safe, take care, everyone, and I'll catch you back in the next video.